Why do some athletes wake up at 4 a.m. every single day to train, while others quit after a few failures? Is it talent or something much deeper? Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into the fascinating psychology of what truly drives elite performance. Let's break down the exact psychological engine that powers the world's greatest achievers.
Every athlete, every dreamer begins with a goal. But only a tiny fraction of those people actually continue the journey when the training becomes agonizingly difficult, when the failures inevitably pile up, and when success feels completely out of reach. So, what exactly separates the ones who keep going from the ones who stop?
Section 1. The 4 a.m. question. Before we get into the textbook concepts, let's look at some real people who faced massive setbacks and absolutely refused to quit. Imagine the total heartbreak of being a teenager, pouring your absolute heart into a sport, and then looking at the locker room wall only to find your name is missing from the varsity roster. Yeah, Michael Jordan was excluded from his high school basketball team. For most people, that rejection is a permanent stop sign. It's the exact moment they decide they just aren't gifted enough. But Jordan, he didn't quit. Instead, he used that painful rejection to practice relentlessly, shooting hoops alone for hours while all his peers were resting.
Or consider PV Sindhu. We all see her now as this incredible badminton icon, right? But her journey had a hidden reality. She faced repeated, crushing disappointments on the world stage before finally claiming her major international titles. It wasn't some straight, easy line to the top. It was a rocky path paved with really tough losses that would have totally shattered the confidence of an ordinary player.
And think of Neeraj Chopra, who devoted years to unseen, grueling discipline, countless repetitive throws, intense physical conditioning, and lonely hours of practice, long before ever tasting Olympic gold. We see this exact same relentless dedication in legends like Virat Kohli or Lionel Messi. It's all about that invisible, daily grind.
So, looking at these incredible stories, we really have to ask ourselves, what is the exact unseen engine pushing them forward? What allows these individuals to absorb failure, shake it off, and step right back onto the field, the court, or the track with even more fire than before?
Section 2. What drives a champion? To understand this, we have to look way past the idea of fleeting enthusiasm and examine a measurable, cultivatable psychological engine.
We so often confuse motivation with just feeling excited or getting hyped up after watching an inspiring movie. But in sports psychology, motivation is defined as the internal and external force that initiates, directs, and sustains behavior toward achieving a goal. It is the true psychological driver that dictates why you start your training, the exact amount of effort you're willing to invest today, and how long you will persist despite the obstacles. It's a continuous psychological process, guys, not just a temporary mood. Highly motivated athletes maintain healthy lifestyles and keep improving even when absolutely no one is watching.
Think of this engine as running on two totally different types of fuel. On one side, we have intrinsic motivation. This is the pure internal joy of learning new skills, pushing your physical limits, and just simply loving the sport. On the other side, we have extrinsic motivation. This is the external pull, the medals, the money, the fame, the trophies, and the social recognition. While some purists out there might say you should only ever play for the love of the game, the reality is that most elite champions use a highly strategic combination of both fuels throughout their careers to keep their engine running at top speed.
So the absolutely crucial point is this: motivation often outperforms pure talent. We place a lot of value on natural gifts, but sports psychologists actually consider motivation to be one of the absolute strongest predictors of athletic performance. In fact, an athlete with moderate talent but extraordinary, unshakable motivation will almost always outperform someone who has exceptional, once-in-a-generation talent but poor commitment. It's like talent gives you a starting position, but motivation dictates how far you run the race.
Section 3. The motivation ecosystem. But, no engine runs entirely alone. A champion relies heavily on their surrounding ecosystem, or pit crew, to maintain that intense drive.
An athlete's motivation is incredibly sensitive to their environment. Supportive coaches who encourage learning and create a psychologically safe space really fuel that motivation. Parents play a massive role too. Positive emotional support and appreciation for effort build a truly resilient mindset. In team sports, an environment built on trust and shared goals amplifies everyone's drive. However, and this is a big however, the reverse is also true. Coaches, parents, or teammates who rely entirely on harsh criticism, punishment, or excessive pressure can unintentionally and sometimes completely drain an athlete's motivation.
Section 4. evolving goals, and mental skills. So what happens when the medals aren't quite enough anymore, or when you face a major mental roadblock on your journey?
Well, motivation is not static. It evolves drastically. In childhood, the primary driver is usually just enjoyment and making friends. You're just out there having fun. But as an athlete enters adolescence, the motivation shifts heavily toward achievement, winning, and really proving their excellence. Then, as they reach elite adulthood, the fuel changes all over again. It becomes about total mastery of their craft, chasing Olympic dreams, representing their nation, and ultimately building a lasting legacy. Understanding these shifting needs is exactly how top professionals sustain a decades-long career without burning out.
Of course, the journey is never perfectly smooth. Along the way, athletes encounter massive psychological roadblocks. Sports psychologists identify specific barriers like the paralyzing fear of failure, the total physical and mental exhaustion of burnout, low confidence after a really bad losing streak, setting unrealistic goals, or just a sudden lack of enjoyment in the sport they once loved so much. When these barriers arise, the psychological engine just stalls out. The main difference between the champion and the quitter is that the champion actively works to dismantle these specific barriers.
How do they do it? Well, they use specific, trainable mental skills to regain their focus and enthusiasm. First, they use positive self-talk, literally rewiring the internal narrative from "I can't do this" to "I am capable of figuring this out." Next, they use visualization, which is mentally rehearsing success before ever stepping onto the field. They also practice emotional regulation to calm their nervous system under immense pressure. And finally, they engage in deep reflection on personal goals to reconnect with their original why. These aren't just buzzwords, guys. They are the literal tools used to reignite a stalled motivational engine. When those mental skills are applied, they create an incredibly powerful feedback loop. You see, confidence and motivation influence each other continuously. By setting clear, measurable goals, an athlete experiences small tastes of success. That success instantly increases their confidence. And what does greater confidence do? It encourages even greater effort and persistence, which then leads to more success. Once an athlete enters this continuous loop of success and effort, they become incredibly difficult to stop.
Section 5. Beyond the playing field. The incredible thing about this psychological engine is that it isn't just for elite athletes. It influences every single one of us.
Are you a student preparing for a grueling competitive exam? Are you a professional grinding toward a major career milestone? Maybe you're an entrepreneur trying to build a business from scratch, or simply an individual waking up early to improve your personal health. The principles are exactly the same across the board. You need that strategic mix of intrinsic and extrinsic fuel. You need to manage your environment, overcome burnout, and utilize positive self-talk. Whether you're an entrepreneur or an athlete, motivation is the universal force required to maintain consistent effort over long periods.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to internalize this. Motivation transforms potential into achievement and dreams into reality. Think about it. Potential is nothing more than unspent energy. The greatest champions in any field are simply the individuals who continue moving forward when others look at the obstacles and decide to stop. They remain motivated, they continue learning, and they adapt regardless of any temporary setbacks.
I want to leave you with this final, powerful thought to reflect on today. Talent may open the door to success, but motivation decides whether you keep walking through it. The next time you face a massive setback, ask yourself what fuel you are using, check your mental engine, and make the choice to take just one more step forward. Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer today, and keep walking through those doors.